Okay, you're good.
Let's see.
Okay. I'll call to order tonight's meeting of the Finance Committee. It's Monday, February 1st, 2021. The time is 4:30. I'm Laura McNally, 5th Ward City Councilperson and Chairwoman. I'm going to take today's roll call for us. We've on today's meeting, Jennifer Ozinger, Rick Deek, Valencia Morrow, Carl Davis, Anita Davis, Basha Adamzak, Beverly Hosey, Chuck Shasho, Don Turnage, Aaron Bishop, Harry Johnson, Jeff Limbian, Jonathan Huff, Julius Oliver, Kevin Flynn, Kyle Mizak, Tito Brown, Mike Durkin, Mike Ray, Nikki Posterly, Samantha Turner, Sharon Woodbury, Chief Finley, and Jean Leeson. That's everybody. We will just get started under ordinances. Number one, I'm not sure who's heading this plan up, but does somebody want to explain sort of a little background here? I know I've talked to a few people about this Glenwood Avenue improvement plan. My conversations didn't include a cost. Oh, Chuck, I see your hand up. Thank you.
Through the chair, I think if it's okay. Yeah, this is actually it's a planning grant. It's not so much a construction project yet. It is it's an idea that becomes a plan, that becomes a design, that becomes a project. So we have to start at the first step here. So this first step is a planning grant to take some preliminary studies and analysis of the corridor from Shields Road all the way to Mahoning Avenue. The focus of this is going to be pedestrian safety, multi-use paths, multimodal transportation, bicycle lanes, intersection upgrades, that type of stuff.
So this is our cost to apply for the grant?
Through the chair, the grant is in the amount of application amount is $30,000. The local match that we're proposing to put in is $12,000, which is going to be paid for by YNDC. So from the city itself, there is no cost.
Oh. Okay, this was written a little bit confusing for me. Does anybody else have questions on this, Anita?
Yes, through the chair. I did get lost because Chuck, I did talk to you. This is our share of the application, and we don't have to put any money in the city.
No, the grant through the chair. The grant is a planning grant. The grant is $30,000. The required local match is $12,000, which is going to be put in by Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation. So the city of Youngstown doesn't have any direct funds into it. Now, as we move along and this does become a project, obviously, part of this planning process is to identify available funding. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You have to start somewhere.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, I think I was reading it as we were entering into an agreement with Eastgate Regional for 30 grand to apply for the grant. So I was just a little thrown off there, but I understand now. So thank you. Does anyone else have questions? I'm not seeing any. Okay, I'm going to move on then to number 2 here. Any questions for Chuck? Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. Chuck, can you actually, I guess for both 2 and 3, can you just explain the project, the infrastructure improvement upgrade program, and how that works?
Sure. This is a program that we don't do these every year, but we've been doing quite a bit of them. We didn't get to one last year just because of the way the budget shook out, the way our projects were applied for, but this is applied for under the Ohio Public Works Commission. So this project is going to be a wide array of different types of things, mostly paving and some traffic signal work, which is very typical of these projects. The streets that, and I think we discussed this a while ago, but I'll just refresh everyone's memory. The streets that we listed and that we got funding for are McGuffey Road, Wick to Albert, Jacobs Road, McGuffey to Seaford, Oak Hill, Marion to Indianola, Shenley, Sheets to Connecticut, McGuffey, Lansdowne to Garland. Hold on a second. Let's strike that. Everything that I just said. I'm sorry, I pulled up the wrong year. I'll have it in 1 second though. Here we go. Sorry. There was 2 files on my computer that were identical. Okay, so let's start over. The roadways that we're applying for is Salt Springs Road. We're probably gonna have to change limits on that, but it shows from Vestal to Bella Vista. Hillman Avenue, Myrtle to Warren, Burlington, Victoria to Belmont, Shehigh from Wilson to Bruce, and Early Road from 422 to High Street. Those are the roads paving wise that we applied for, that we were successful in getting the funding for. The traffic signals that we have slated for improvements are at the intersection of Front Street and South Avenue, and also on Belmont Avenue, and I think it's Francisca, over where they're building the VA clinic. So those 2 traffic signals will be upgraded, and then the roads that I just mentioned, and I apologize for that mistake.
And just
Samantha.
through the chair, just a follow up. So this is done, you said it's not done annually, but I don't know, is it done semi-annually? And then we kind of consult and figure out which roadways apply to this, just to get clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fair question. But what we do is we look at, there's certain roads that are more favorable to pave. The roads with higher traffic volumes tend to get more points. So we will mix in, kind of blend in roads with lower traffic volumes and with roads with higher traffic volumes to kind of group everything together. They do what they'll do is a weighted score for traffic volume. So that's just one component. Sometimes if we're getting money from another source, it makes it more attractive to pave. So like there's a lot of cases where, for instance, South Avenue, what we did was we applied for federal money for 80% of the money to pave South Avenue a few years ago. And then we applied to this program, state program, to pay for the 20%. So the state doesn't pay anything. So sometimes we'll incorporate those types of projects in. So that's why when I say we don't do it every year, it just depends on how our other projects are lining up to see where we need the money. And sometimes we have to use this program to get money for other projects. But in this case, I'm glad that we're able to be able to do that this year. So just the next question, maybe it would be, this project's going to start design work now. We're going to probably do this in 2 phases. We won't be able to officially enter into a grant agreement until July, but we will have the plans ready to go for construction. And we can do everything except award the contract by July. So we'll have it ready to go. We'll have the bids out. We'll have it ready to award as soon as we get the grant go ahead. We'll go ahead and award the contract. So these roads will be paved this year before summer.
Samantha.
Thank you. And my final follow-up is these main thoroughfares being paved is in addition to the side streets that we have paved throughout the year we do in-house, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. This is taken into account for our local match for our budget. That is a completely different program, a completely different funding source. We like to try to focus on the side streets and residential areas because they're not eligible for other funding. And so we have to use our local funding for that. So that's what we use it for. So that'll be a separate paving contract, which since you brought it up, that is going to be coming up later in the legislation agenda here. Also, it's time to start thinking about those streets. We'll be having some meetings in-house this week. And then, I expect that we want to go out for bid a little earlier this year. We definitely want to be out for bid, but I'd like to get out for bid maybe late April, or at least have a definitive plan set in place by then.
Any other questions on number 2 here? Okay, thanks, Chuck. Number 3, questions around this one. Anita?
Chuck, on this one, this is for our local paving, correct, for the side streets?
Through the chair. Item number 2 was for design services
I'm talking
for
about
the
number 3.
infrastructure program. Number 3 is to go out for bids for that same program. But we haven't talked about local resurfacing yet. This is still that same program that we just had the discussion on. Still the same project, just a
For the
different
same project.
sister piece, they call it, I guess.
Okay.
Companion piece.
Anything else here on number 3? Okay, I'm gonna move down to number 4, bridge inspection program questions. Okay, I'm gonna move to number 5. We've talked about this Crescent Street project in the past. Are there any questions here? Number 6. This one is our street resurfacing program for the side streets, Chuck.
Through the chair, that's correct. I have a request in here to, right now we have it at 1.1 million. You may notice that's a little bit lower than last year for budgetary reasons. So just to be aware of that as we go through this process, we're gonna have to look, the project's gonna be a little bit lower than it was last year. So my goal here is by the end of this week to have a list out to all the council members. I'm gonna email it to you. And basically that list is gonna be streets that were on your list from last year that we didn't get to. We're gonna remove all the ones that we paved last year. So we're gonna start from that list, and I'm gonna have a schedule in there for you to keep everybody, because we have 7 different people to talk to. We want to, we want to get all these things back in an amount of time to get all these estimates done back to you so that we can get out for bid at a timely manner. So you'll be getting a memo from me by the end of the week.
Lauren, can I address the council as a whole?
Or Kyle.
So the mayor and I and Chuck had sat down, and we felt that the best way to bring you a baseline budget would be to put on paper what we've done in the past prior to how it was modified in 2020. This way, you'll appreciate that when we present a balanced budget to you, we'll be able to outline what we are doing and then show you how much of the surplus is left over. Based on council's input along with the administration, we felt this would be the best starting point. And then if you want to improve and increase what you'd like to do in certain areas, we can show by making those changes how it will impact the bottom line and how much of the remaining surplus will be left over as a result of those changes that you look to improve. So that was why we thought we'd come back to you with a baseline of 1.1, and so that we could then evaluate that once we had finished all the operating government entities, so that you would then have an appreciation for what the budget is and how you may want to address it by tweaking it in areas that you may want to favor.
Anita?
Through the
Thanks,
chair.
Kyle.
This is for
Go ahead,
Kyle or
Anita.
Chuck. Yeah, so of this 1.1 million, how much of that is our CDBG funding?
Through the chair, 750,000.
Is that the same amount we had follow-up? Is that the same amount from last year?
That is what we get every single year unless there is excess capacity and council chooses to direct it towards paving.
So the, one other follow-up, so where you made the cut was from our general fund contribution for the paving.
Through the chair, yes, remember, the paving is part of the $5 auto license fund, which is what we always budget for first to make sure that we meet all of the obligations of all the different programs that either council and the administration has entered into in prior years that are now potentially on the calendar for the current year. So until we get everything all put in the budget, we felt like, okay, let's go with a baseline amount. So when we come back to you and say, this is all of the major items, here's what it's going to cost us, this is what we're going to rely on in the surplus, this is what's left over. How would you like to proceed? Would you like to use more of the surplus? Would you like to divert some of the surplus towards paving and cut someplace else? But we want to bring that to you so you can assist in helping us make those decisions and you give us our guidance on how you'd like us to move forward.
Thank you.
Chuck, do you have a quick spreadsheet that showcases how much money we've spent on in this program over the last, I don't know, 6 years, 5, 6 years? I'd like to see a trending history.
Through the chair, do you mean specifically the local resurfacing program, Councilwoman?
Correct. Yeah.
I don't have that like handy, but I could put that together for you tomorrow.
No, could you just email it to me? Yeah, whenever you get a chance. Thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else have questions here? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go on to number 7. The agenda cut off, so. Any questions on number 7? Okay. Number 8. Any questions here? Okay, number 9. Questions here? Number 10 is off agenda. Number 11. Question. 12. 13. 14. Number 15. Number 16.
I have a question.
Samantha.
Thank you. Through the chair. Actually, just for 15 and 16. Thanks, Chuck, for sending me the work orders. I just have a processing question. In fixing the basin and the sewer line at this junction, do you look at the lines around it and determine if they need to be repaired as well? Or again, are we just fixing them as they fall?
Through the chair, in this particular case, and in a lot of cases, we're looking to, frankly, we're looking to get out of there. We don't have, we don't want to spend any more time there on time and material with the contractor than we have to. If we identify a larger area that needs to be repaired, we may extend the project up a little bit to perhaps make maybe the next manhole or something. But generally speaking, we're not going to go branch out from there and say, hey, do this, do that, do this, because that gets expensive. If we do identify something, we may, sometimes projects are born out of that. We'll enter into a design contract or do a design in-house. bid the project out. But generally speaking, we don't go out looking for problems. If once we have a contractor there, them and their employees, their equipment, that's a lot of money. We want to get in and get out usually is how we get it done.
Just
Samantha?
through the chair. So what I mean is, if we contract with them to fix this junction, as a city, do we go and look at maybe the surrounding the basins or the sewers that are surrounding this, just to make sure all is good and it's not a problem that is trickled down to the one maybe adjacent to it or above or below? So do we do that just to make sure everything is covered? It doesn't, I'm not saying expanding their work, I'm saying what our body of work looks like.
Sure, through the chair, we do that. Like, especially if we're, within the same line, we'll televise up and televise down to make sure that we're not leaving something behind that we shouldn't. And, we have found other things while we have someone there, and we have repaired them. So yes, that's a good question. And we do that.
Anything else, Anita?
Through the chair, yes. So Chuck, of these catch basins that had to be replaced, how many did that entail?
Through the chair. Oh, you mean on 16? I'm sorry, we're on 15.
16 went on, you said, it says a storm sewer and catch basins, plural.
Yeah, that's
on
on
Dover.
16. I believe there were 2 or 3 catch basins there, and the storm sewer. The storm sewer was a pretty big pipe.
And that's west, correct? That's on the west side?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay.
Any more questions on 15 or 16? Number 17. Any questions? Is this a new grant? I don't recollect seeing this one in the past. What can
Through the chair.
maybe I don't know who said that. I'm sorry.
Tito said it.
Oh, hello. Sorry. Thank you. I was looking down.
That's all right.
Mayor.
Yeah. So this was a grant that we came together on through the U.S. Conference of Mayors through their DollarWise program, and they give you it's always about social impact and social mobility. And we wrote a grant to what we call License to Success, and this was to help individuals that are having issues with paying their fees and fines to get their license back, to get them back to work, or to get them transportation. So we're like one of 7 cities across the nation that did receive this grant. So we had a great team. We're going to be working with Flying High, Guy Burney, are going to be, as well as the municipal courts, to deal with individuals who may be just between a rock and a hard place. And that's what they need. They need to get their license back on track. And this will go for that.
Thank you. Samantha.
Thank you. Through the chair, Mayor. So we're going to administer the grant, and those entities are going to request from us funding to help individuals, or are we going to place this 10,000 with Serve or with the courts, and they're going to give that out to people that request services or assistance? How's that working?
Through the chair, they'll be working, those individuals that work with Guy Burney through Serve and through Flying High. So it's more program based. If you're working with Guy and you're working with Flying High, this is just another part of the program package that they'll get to help and assist those individuals.
Any other questions, Samantha?
Thank you. Just a follow up. So are we saying that we have $10,000 to help individuals, or this 10,000 is going to them to develop programming to help individuals?
Through the chair, direct response. This is to help individuals to do so, and we also have a metrics to figure out how to kind of measure what are some of the barriers that have been placed in front of them. If it's parking tickets, if it's fines, They want us to measure that because that's all impacting the social mobility of individuals able to have economic. It's all about economic employment and the social mobility and the economic mobility of an individual.
Anita?
Through the chair. So is there any other encumbrance that the city will have to do matching or anything on this? Or we're just clear with this if we accepted it?
And direct response, no, this was a competitive grant and we won. So we don't have anything, we don't have to match it with anything.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, does it all have to be used by a certain deadline?
A direct response to the chair, no.
Anything else here? Okay, thank you. Move on to number 18. All right. Samantha.
Thank you. This might be for Cal. Can you just give me an overview of how this works? This came in as revenue via, I'm assuming, the water bills, and then we're just distributing it to these departments. This is how this is working? It's just as simple?
Through the chair, no,
Kyle.
we collect these monies from the organizations that we actually clean and test their wastewater under contract. There are, Chuck, if you could help me, I think there's like 12 or 13 businesses that collect water and then they bring it to the city's wastewater treatment plant and we then clean it. So these monies get deposited into the pre-treatment fund instead of going directly into the wastewater treatment fund. And so now council or the administration is asking to expend some of these monies, one, to do some of our chemistry and some of our testing, and also to use some of those funds to make some improvements and to buy some things that are needed at the wastewater treatment plant. Those monies can only be used down at the wastewater treatment plant.
I know when we raised the our rates last year, there was talk about renegotiating the fees that we charge for this service. Did that ever happen?
Through the chair, I think it's two different topics. We're still in discussions internally with the county. And I think we hired, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, MS Consultants, and they are still doing a study to evaluate how much additional wastewater is coming into the system. Is that correct?
No, I think through the chair, sorry, Councilman, I think you're referring to was the pre-treatment. This is all pre-treatment. Pre-treatment is when industrial users are discharging abnormal flows to the system. In other words, things that are potentially could be contaminated or things that could potentially harm our processes. So we have pre-treatment crews that go out and test their water before it's released into our system periodically to make sure that they're within certain guidelines and limits. And if they aren't, they get violation letters. They also monitor our overflows, the pre-treatment crew. So those monies that are collected through that system is what these funds are for. And they have to be, by ordinance, they have to be appropriated back to the pre-treatment funds directly. So this is not, this has nothing, this isn't flows received from the county. These are industrial businesses that we go out and visit on a regular basis to test their effluent coming into our system to make sure it's within guidelines. We test for things like mercury, metals, stuff like that.
Through the chair.
Gotcha. Anita?
Yes, through the chair. So these businesses, they are located here in Youngstown and they are our customers?
Through the chair, yes.
And this is a contract that we have that's renewed annually, or how's it done?
Through the chair, they apply for a pre-treatment permit they need to apply for a permit through wastewater to release that flow into our system. So once we have that permit, then You know, it's just like when you build a house or a building and you apply for a sewer permit. They apply for a pre-treatment so that we know we have to go out there and test that now. And we do that so on a regular basis. EPA makes sure that we do it. And then we monitor those flows in that material to make sure that they're complying with our pre-treatment ordinances.
Through the chair, and those businesses are all located within the city limits?
Through the chair, it's my understanding, I'm almost positive they are, yes, they would all have to be within the city limits.
Thank you.
So we're only appropriating $400,000 out of this fund. How much is in this fund?
Through the chair, we collect roughly about $80,000 a year. For a number of years, we were not using any of those funds. Last year, council gave the administration the authority to start expending some of it, and we ended up doing some improvements as part of the chemistry lab that's down at the wastewater treatment plant. And I think Chuck and Gene have some additional things that they want to use those funds this year. I think Chuck would be the best one to answer those questions.
So we collect 80K a year. How much is, I still don't know how much is in there.
1 second through the chair.
Okay, thanks, Kyle.
Through the chair, I'm just looking for my year-end cash fund report to tell you exactly what we ended the year with in that fund. If you give me a moment.
No problem.
Moment, I can't tell you exactly what we ended, but I'll tell you what we ended in 2019. In 2019, before we ended with $600,000, we added $74,000 to it in 2019. We collected roughly $78,000 in 2020, which would have put us at roughly $680,000. And then we expended money this past year of approximately $7,000. So we have an excess of $675,000 in that fund.
So after this, we'll have $200,000 in the fund.
Through the chair, if they expend everything that you give them the authority to expend, they're just requesting those in appropriations.
And do we need any type of, do we need to carry that much money in here for any reason? Is this, I mean, that's a big drastic change to take this down that far. Does that pause for concern for any reason? Or can it be at zero? Like, we don't use this fund for anything on a regular basis and we save money in here for reasons like this?
Through the chair, Chuck, there is a requirement on how these funds can be expended, correct?
Through the chair, yes. This would have to be related to laboratory services, laboratory equipment, pre-treatment testing equipment, such stuff like that. So this would all be geared towards the pre-treatment program itself. So lab equipment is the big thing that we're going to make some improvements to this year.
But on an average basis, we're only spending maybe $7,000 a year out of here normally. This is like a big project you want to do. It's a one-time deal.
I don't know that it's a one-time. Yeah, I think we do have some improvements to make within the lab itself. So if that's the question you're asking, yes. We don't have those finalized just yet, but you know, we have an idea of where we're going with it, and we feel this is the amount that we need. I don't have the details of that right now. I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, no, I guess my point, maybe I'm not getting my point across, is that we're gonna take this fund down significantly by spending this money. That's okay to do because we don't need to carry this much money in here, because normally we only spend a few $1,000s here and there each year out of this fund. Like next year, you're not gonna be like, oops, I need $400,000 again, but we only have 200,000 in here, so we're gonna have to find the rest somewhere else.
Through the chair, no, that wouldn't happen. But this is money that's been kind of collecting over here. So we do have uses for the money. We can't, the bottom line is we can't use it anywhere else. I mean, like not even within wastewater. It has to be for pretreatment.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we had to be collecting it for quite a few years. Anita, you had your hand up, sorry.
Chuck answered my question because I wanted to know if it was within wastewater. Was it wastewater in general or specifically just the lab? And Chuck answered the question. I think he said it was the lab, correct, Chuck?
Through the chair, yes. And let's not forget, along with our pretreatment system, we have testing that goes on within the plant itself, and we have some requirements, with our project that we did, to some performance measures that we have to take to kind of to show the EPA how our new system's working. That's going to add some costs, particularly in testing. So we'll need those funds for that for this year.
Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. Okay, I just want to be clear on this. You're requesting 400,000 to do some upgrades to the pre-treatment plant. This is aside from the upgrades that we are already making there, more specifically the lab and our pre-treatment equipment that we have in-house.
Through the chair, yes. This is mostly, there are going to be laboratory fees. Okay. We're going to have some chemicals, purchasing, that type of stuff, and also equipment. The equipment is, you're looking at $50,000 for equipment. So it's not extensive, but it is enough where, we don't want to use it out of our regular budget. So we need to move this money into this fund so that we can make these expenditures out of here. We don't want to have to take it out of a regular wastewater budget. So these funds collected in the pre-treatment program can only be spent on pre-treatment services. So that's why we're requesting that they be appropriated.
Okay, just a direct follow-up through the chair. Could you explain what these professional services mean? Because you won't come back to us and let us know kind of how you spent it after appropriating this 400,000. I just want to gain some clarity as to what's happening. You're spending 50,000 in equipment. You'll do some lab testing fees, but what is that large 250,000? What type of services is happening there?
We send almost all of our lab work out for testing.
So it's only 50,000 to upgrade our material.
Yes, it's mostly professional service for outside lab work.
Okay, and normally it's only about 7,000 a year. Last year you only spent about 7,000 out of this, or you did?
I don't know if Gene has an answer to this or not, but we don't necessarily just take it out of pre-treatment. I don't believe we take them out. In other words, the revenue side of it, I don't think comes from this pre-treatment. This is sometimes it's skews out of our general professional services for the plant, not necessarily the pre-treatment. That's why we're saying we want to move this into pre-treatment so we can use those funds that are just sitting there we're not able to use.
Okay, so you in years past you may have used it from out of a different fund, but you can actually use all of it out of the pre-treatment fund. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think yes. This is all about the revenue end. It's really not about the expenditures. The expenditures were made, and I don't have those numbers with me. But those more expenditures than $7,000 were made out of that fund. But the revenue this revenue of the pre-treatment revenue that we're talking about here was just sitting there in limbo and not being able to be used because we weren't using it for pretreatment. We need to move it into the pretreatment fund so that we can expend it on legal expenditures.
I'm sorry.
The expenditures were
sorry,
being made regardless.
They are being made regardless. So what I'm asking, were you spending them out of a different fund? Or if you spent more than 7,000, we only accounted for 7,000, I think he said last year. But if you spent more than 7, you spent about a different fund. But now we realize that we need to get this money in place so that we can use it out of the appropriate fund.
Yes, and I could be wrong, Kyle. Step in if I'm misspeaking. This really isn't my. But that money in wastewater is all wastewater money. But this pretreatment money specifically is revenue that comes in that can only be used for pretreatment. We can't use it to buy a front end loader or a piece of equipment or something in the collection system. It has to be used for pretreatment. So in the past, with those expenditures in pretreatment, I believe were being made just out of the general wastewater fund, but we should be able to take these monies into this fund and expend them. That's
through the chair.
Am I right?
Yes, through the chair. We're not, let me just take a step back. If you went back about 10 years ago, Tommy had said to the past administrations that we need to someday start bringing more of this testing and the lab work back inside to the wastewater treatment plant. These funds were back then being used to acquire a bunch of the chemicals. And so there was this belief that if we started paying for some of that stuff out of the wastewater treatment plant, this fund could then build a reserve. And then someday in the near future, they could go back out and acquire some of the new lab equipment that they were going to need and bring it back in-house. So what was happening was some of the wastewater treatment plant funds were being used to buy these things. Now that the reserve is much healthier and higher, they're now asking council to appropriate the money so they can go out and expend these funds properly, but now paying from them from the wastewater treatment fund and not out of the wastewater fund directly. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand that these monies were just not being used and now they're going to be used for the purposes of what they were collected for? And we collect around $80,000 a year from the 15 different entities within the city.
Thank you.
Anything else here? Any other questions? Okay. Number 19.
I'll address
Questions
it.
here.
I'll address it.
Okay.
Okay.
Kyle.
I think the language is a little misleading. We are not asking to appropriate anything from the general fund. What this legislation should be asking is that council appropriate $500,000 into the business development fund. And the reason that we're asking you to do that, CDA is going to be providing the funding for this particular program. And if you look at the legislation, I'm bringing it up myself right here. Just give me a minute. These funds are going to come from COVID funds from CDA and from the minority and disadvantaged business with under CDA. We have to spend the money first, and then CDA is going to reimburse us. So CDA is going to have oversight on this program. There's going to be applications, and I think Nikki could explain this better, but ultimately we're going to be a flow through. We're going to provide the funding from the Business Development Fund. That paperwork will then be submitted back to CDA. CDA will draw down those monies from HUD and reimburse us dollar for dollar. But we need to have the funds upfront appropriated so that we can expend them, and then CDA can then then CDA can reimburse us with HUD funds. But Nikki can explain what the funds are actually going to be used for.
Thanks, Kyle.
Through the chair.
Does anyone have questions? Oh, Nikki, do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to explain. It's for our minority business outreach. We spoke about earlier in our CPEC committee meeting, and council already approved through when we did our consolidated plan and for our COVID relief, council already approved the dollars. We're just asking to move them so that we can reimburse properly.
Thanks. Samantha?
Thank you through the chair. Nikki, is this the dollars that we received this past late April, early May for businesses due to COVID-19?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, so we haven't gotten any of that money out, and this is for us to get that money out into the community.
Through the chair, no, we have money set aside for minority business contracts and outreach. We, at the time when we were approved and we set the money aside, we didn't have someone running the program. We've since then now contracted with someone to run the program, and now we're ready to start moving forward with the funding.
Okay, so this is those dollars that we got for COVID, and we hadn't got them out. Now we have a program in place, and now we're getting that money out into the community.
Correct, the minority outreach portion of it, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one?
Through the chair, we're gonna need to correct that we're gonna need to correct the language, though. We're not appropriating $500,000 from the general fund. We're asking you to appropriate $500,000 out of the business development fund.
Okay. Jeff, can you make a note of that? If it's in the actual language.
Yes, through the chair, yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this piece? Anita?
To the chair. So Cal, it's only 2 words then, that it's the whole piece that has to be corrected, or just removing the words general fund?
It would just be removing, through the chair, general fund, because you're
Just the word general fund,
requesting
right.
you to appropriate $500,000 in the business development fund under that line item.
Okay, so we're just striking 2 words. Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay. Good. Let's see, number 20 here. Questions? Anita?
Through the chair, so what is the total amount that we will be appropriating?
Through the chair, this is Erin Bishop. Just to let you know,
Erin?
yes, so we have 3 different funds. The first is our group home inspection program, which is $10,600, and our health clinic services, which is $59,000. And then the third is our summer food service inspection program, which is $5,000. So this is all funds that we generate. For the group home inspections, it's through our licensing fees. Through our health clinic services, it's our fees and services for our clinic. And then for our summer food inspection program, it's for the temporary licenses we get throughout the summer months due to festivals and people that have the food trucks and whatnot.
I'm sorry, Erin, I know this was actually, I think, in the legislation, but what was the third fund total for this year?
Yeah, $5,000 for our summer food service inspection program.
I'm assuming that was affected by COVID.
It was
Normally higher.
It's usually higher, yes.
What like ballpark?
It's
What is
probably
it usually?
it's usually about 8 or 9. So we definitely went down there.
Okay. Any other questions on number 20 from anyone? Oh, Samantha.
Thank you through the chair. So this is income that is generated, and we're putting it into the health district to help prepare the 2021 budget.
Correct. Yeah. So this is what we generate over the year in our different programs. And then we just appropriate it to the different sections so that it stays within where the revenues are coming from. You know what I mean? So like if we're getting it from the group homes, we keep it in the group homes. If we get it from the health clinic, keep it in the health clinic.
Through the chair,
Kyle,
Councilman Turner, we have separate funds that these monies are directly deposited into. And then the health department is asking you to appropriate those dollars in that special fund so they can then expend them for those services. So they are earmarked and cannot be used for other services. And this gets done annually in each of the calendar year because these are monies that were collected last year. Or sometimes it's monies collected last year and this year, depending on how much was expended. And then they'll either increase or decrease depending on how much money they have at the end of the calendar year. And I usually inform the health department of what is the beginning cash balance, what did they collect, and then they determine if they think they're going to collect around the same amount, then they'll ask you to appropriate up to that level. Then over the course of the year, we track the revenues. If the revenues aren't going to be enough, we make sure we don't spend up to that level, even though you gave us the authority.
Samantha.
Thank you. So Aaron or Cal, can you tell me overall how much were we down in revenue collection from 2019 to 2020?
Through the chair, when you say down, are you
Kyle.
talking about these particular funds, or you're
Yeah.
asking?
I'm asking for the ones that are right in front of us, just the.
Okay, if you give me a moment, I will. Neither of these funds ended up in the red. They were all ended up in the black, which they are required. So are you asking how much we collected or what our opening balance is for 2021?
So like Aaron said, for the summer food, she was down about 3,000, is approximately 3,000. Is that the same for all three services, or did we break even, or did we collect what we thought we were going to collect in group home inspections and the health clinic services?
Okay, through the chair. In 2020, under the summer food services, we collected a few $1,000s, and we are using those dollars along with the opening balance, and they're requesting that you give them the authority to expend up to that level. They are not exceeding that level. If I look at the next fund, just one second, I'm looking at the legislation to track, because I don't have it in paper in front of me. I have it on my computer. Let's see, what's the other fund? Group Home Inspection 2401. Fund 2401 in 2020 collected roughly $700, and the ending cash balance in that fund was $16,622. So they are asking to have the authority to expend up to that level, where they're asking to expend $10,600. They may not expend all of that, but they have the means and are in compliance, and I would be certifying that based on those appropriations, there's enough revenue to cover that. And then under the health clinic services, last year they collected just give me a second, I gotta get to that fund. They collected, and it's a breakdown, $15,000 on clinic fees. That's where their income came in. So that was what they collected last year. And their opening cash balance was $63,450.
Samantha.
Thank you. So are we doing the budget work now, or I guess I might be confused as to why is it we haven't done any budget talk. So can you help me figure out why this is here?
Through the chair, there are certain funds that are dedicated and are separate of the budget, and they get done through ordinances similar to like litter control in the health department. These are these small funds that they collect specialized money. The budget is for all of the funds that come in for service and fees that are tied to the general fund and for providing services that the general fund isn't had a dedicated resource being utilized for a service. Specialized funds for health funds have to be tracked separately per the state. And so that's why the health department is asking you at the beginning of the process of each calendar year to expend the funds that they have in reserve and what they believe they're going to collect over the current year to be able to provide those services that those funds are for.
Thank you. And through the chair, just one more follow-up. So I understand how the funds work, but should we not look at it as a whole, like it's spread out? This is just kind of, it's weird to me, and maybe that's just how it happens. But I feel like when we sit down to do the budget, we should be looking at all of these funds and how they all work together to make the budget and make the city run efficiently. I mean, that's probably why I'm confused, because I feel like we haven't had any budget conversations about any monies in any funds. And now I'm seeing that we're appropriating and moving things around. And I don't know, I feel like there's a whole piece kind of hanging out there we're not talking about. So
Through the chair,
at this point.
I appreciate, and I think what you're saying makes sense, but when it comes to the health department, the health commissioner has the most expertise in how these funds should be used, along with the fact that the mayor sits on the health board. So these funds are required to be structured and set aside and used for certain services. And I don't know if council wants to get involved with dictating what the health commissioner has expertise in and how to use those funds. But I can appreciate the other funds, and we can talk about potentially pulling them in. But remember, they're not part of the normal budget. So we would be asking council to pass multiple budgets, meaning a budget on the scope of $10,000 separate of the $55 and $60 million that you're passing. But that is why some of these are done in ordinance form, and it changes each year based on the amount of revenue that was collected from the prior year. So it's not like it's consistent where the money comes in and year out.
Anita?
I'm just out of curiosity, Cal, or Aaron, how much of a reduction in revenue was there between last year and 2019 before COVID?
Through the chair, are you asking in just each of these funds, or are you asking?
Well, for instance, I'll just use just the one fund. I'm curious. For instance, the health clinic and the group home inspections. It was less last year because of COVID. I'm just curious, how much less was it last year as opposed to 2019?
1 second, I'll look up the fund and see what the activity was for the prior year.
Thank you. That's all.
You're welcome.
I don't know if it's consistent, across all the departments and things.
All right. In 2019, we collected $2,000, and I'm just rounding. In 2018, we collected $1,300 in that particular fund.
And then last year, it was how much in 20?
What the?
700?
Yes, that's what I said. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, Aaron, you're saying you're expecting to spend $10,000 this year in your group home program, $59,000 this year in your health clinic program. That's what we're doing here.
Correct. And it may not be that much, you know what I mean? But we'd rather give more, and then at the end of the year, if we don't spend it, obviously let you know, but just instead of going back to you to continue to appropriate more funding.
And that's in line with what you usually spend every year. You're not expanding any of these programs this year?
No, and one thing with the health clinic services, we are expanding with our reproductive health and wellness, but we get a separate grant for that. So we wouldn't need anything. It's not on here because it's a whole separate issue with the grant funding that just focuses on women's reproductive health.
Anita?
Through the chair, I just, Aaron, so dealing with these group homes, you did fewer inspections because of COVID.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to go into some of the homes. We were not allowed
So
to
the
go.
state set that parameter.
Right.
Right.
So
All right, I
this
just want to
year-
get it clear.
Yeah,
It's because of the state's mandate.
correct.
Thank you. I just
Mhm.
want to get that out there.
Yep.
Anything else on this piece? Okay, I'm gonna move on. Thank you, Aaron. Number 21. Questions for litter control. Okay,
Through the
Samantha,
chair. Through the chair.
what, Julia?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Is I can go?
Yeah, sorry, Samantha, I'll come back to you. Sorry. Go ahead, Julia.
Where there were funds, I know, for certain projects. I don't know who can answer. Maybe I don't know if Bob is on the call. But when Jen left, there were funds in litter control for projects on South Avenue. Are those money still available, or did they get lost somewhere? Because I don't think Bob said he had that in his budget anymore.
Through the
Kyle,
chair,
do you have
through the chair.
anything?
Julius, we're gonna have to talk about this offline. These funds that were dedicated were found to be not in compliance with HUD. So we had to reimburse CDBG funds back in 2018. There is documentation that I have that CDA is asking me to pull together to show where those monies, how they were expended. That it was deemed that that project had some type of compliance issue with HUD. And I can, myself and Rich Harvey, along with Rufus Hudson, can sit down with you because I'm in the middle of collecting documentation to supply back to CDA so that those documents can be shared with HUD.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. We'll have that conversation.
Samantha,
Thank you. Through the chair. Now, is this litter control's complete budget for the year, or is this just appropriation that you put together?
Kyle,
Through the chair. This is their entire budget, as long as there is no pass-through grants that are then approved by council through ordinance. There is two funding of revenue sources. This is the amount of money that they will be getting from the county along with CDA. So what we have in front of you in the ordinance request is to appropriate those monies to cover payroll and benefits. And then the remaining money outside of that will be used towards some of the costs associated with what litter control is responsible for in the city.
Say that last part again, Cal. What?
Some of, when you look at those line items, if I look at the legislation, just give me a second to get down to that page. If you look at all the line items from utilities down, those are the remaining funds that are outside of payroll and benefits that are provided by the two revenue sources. And that's what Bob and the health department will use to meet their service level obligations that they're going to perform in the next 12 months.
Samantha,
Thank you, through the chair. So Cal, these dollars, this 193,498 is monies that come in from CDA and monies that come in from the city. I mean, not the city, the county.
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
And that doesn't include what we put in as this, like what is our buy-in to this, and not CDA.
Through the chair, the city makes no direct contribution to litter control. Litter control is funded by CDA and by the county.
And one more question. So Bob didn't, is this in line with the budget from last year?
Through the chair, yes, it is, except for last year had an additional 50,000 to be paid back to the city's general fund. I had to make an advance at the end of 18 and 19 because the funding from the county did not come in time, and we cannot close the books where the fund was in the red. So I had to, at the end of the year, as part of the reconciliation budget in 2019, we lent the fund money, and then back in January of this current calendar year, after the county remitted its money back to the city, because it was again, timing. It didn't happen in December, it happened in January. And so then in January, those funds were returned back to the general fund. That expenditure is not on the books in 2021 because those monies have been returned.
I guess I just have one more question. Again, these come from external funding sources. The city does not make any contributions to litter control. I guess I don't have a question. I think it's just the statement is I don't know that that is efficient when we do generate and we utilize their services a lot. And I'm just thinking of someone who is calling Bob at a constant pace, figuring out how we make sure that that department is strong because they have been needed a lot this last year. So this is something that I think, honestly, and this is my opinion, is that we probably should step back and make sure that we are doing everything we can to ensure that litter control can go and keep going strong. So I would look at the totality of what's happened this year when it comes to the mattresses, when it comes to all the dumping. Is there enough dollars in litter control?
Through the chair, remember, environmental sanitation is also dealing with blight. So those costs are not being borne by the litter control. So we are looking for areas where there is synergies. And if the environmental sanitation fund can meet those expenditure level or expenses, we do put those expenses into that particular fund to cover that blight removal. So it does not impact the litter control and what they're able to do with cameras and with some of the other specialties that are coming from litter control.
I understand it. I do think that it's the conversation is bigger than just this piece of legislation here. That's what I'm saying here. Thank you, Cal.
Okay, anything else on 21 from anyone else? Good. Okay. Now 22. Questions here? No? Okay. 23. Questions here? No. This has been discussed a few times. Samantha.
Thank you. Through the chair. I don't have a question. I just have a comment. This piece of legislation has come in front of us a number of times, and we've all had this conversation. In my opinion, at this point, we have not seen a budget for 2021. And I do think that it is fiscally irresponsible for us to make raises for the finance director or the law director without one, seeing a budget, but two, right now, it just is it seems very personal, and it's not at all. It really should be based on the position, and it should start January 1 of 2022. There's no need for any response, just my opinion on that.
Anything else from anyone on number 23 here? Anita?
Yes, through the chair, I have a question for the legal. With and this is specific to the law finance. However,
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I said this. What I want to know is to change the description of the job description of the deputy finance, of the assistant finance director or deputy finance director. That's just a matter of a job description change. Is that correct, Attorney Lemon? For both the finance assistant finance director and the prosecutor.
Through the chair, I believe that would be a change in the description and also passage through council, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
But what I want to know is, like, for instance, since we currently have a savings because we have individuals, an individual doing 2 jobs, okay, but if in the future we fill the assistance position in the finance department, and we are looking at talking about doing a purchasing officer. So could not that their purchasing thing be included as the one of the duties of the deputy finance director?
Through the
Isn't that-
chair. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's my question.
Oh,
Is that
yes,
just a
through-
job description?
Yes, through the chair. That absolutely could be changed to incorporate any duties that you deem necessary. And I shouldn't speak. I mean, I'm speaking in terms of law. I don't know if there's a component from a finance perspective that Kyle could contribute to, but my appreciation from the law end of it is, yes, that any job description can be changed in any way to accommodate the needs of the day.
And is that job description, because there's a current vacancy from the prosecutor's position and the assistant or deputy finance director's position, that would that require legislation, or just write it up, the job description?
Through the chair, I believe that would require modification through council.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any further questions on item number 23? Item number 24. Questions, Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. Just again, we have not seen a budget for 2021, and I do not believe that it is fiscally responsible of us to give any wage increases to the finance or the law director. Any wage increases for those positions should take place January 1 of 2022.
Okay, I think number, oh, sorry, Anita?
Yes, through the chair.
Go ahead.
To the law director, addressing Councilwoman Turner's concern. So what is the interpretation from the law director about when these things should take place? Are we restricted from doing this because it should take place in 2022, the increase, or what? Give the legal opinion.
My legal opinion is that it can happen now based on the charter amendment. But that's not a commentary on Councilwoman Turner's position. I understand her position.
I want to do legal.
From a legal standpoint, I know there's a charter provision that talks about no interim raises, and I presume maybe that's what you're referring to. I had a concern that may be an impediment. I spoke to the finance director about that, and I know he's not a lawyer, but we went over this, and it's it seems to be the consensus that the new charter amendment trumps all the charter amendments, the charter components that existed prior to that.
Okay. To the chair.
Go ahead, Anita.
Yes, Attorney Lemian, have you sought any kind of outside?
No, ma'am.
Do you see any conflict of interest on your part?
Truthfully, I have stayed completely out of this. I really don't have an opinion.
Okay.
I'll be happy to seek an outside if you want to set it aside until we have an outside opinion. That's perfectly fine with me.
No, I just want to know why you didn't do that already. No,
Yes.
we've had this in front of us. We've been discussing this for some time, and I think you should have sought an opinion before.
Well, I don't think it's necessary. I don't know why you didn't ask me before now.
Because you're a lawyer and that's your job.
Okay.
Think of these things beforehand.
Well, I've had other people within the office creating a wall so that a decision could be clear from several perspectives. Just because something involves a potential salary increase for me doesn't mean that I'm incapable of coming to a legal conclusion about it.
We know you and I can argue about, but we're not going to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anita, is that something you want?
No.
Outside, okay. Samantha?
Thank you. Just through the chair, I don't question the legality of it. I respect the wishes of the voters. I'm just saying that, again, we have not received a budget and we are not sure of our fiscal future right now due to the effects of COVID-19, which is why, again, I do not think it is fiscally responsible of us to give raises. And these are merit increases, whether we want to say their position or not. And right now, that's it. So the legality of it is fine. The voters have made their decision, but we, as the keepers of the purse and the administrators of city funding, I think that we need to look at the entire picture, and giving the raises and putting them on the books now for January 1 of 2022 does make sure that those positions have the funds that they need and that we can attract talent, of course, is what we've all said. But right now, I don't think that we should institute it. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you, because I
we're
thought
just-
you were questioning the legality of it. I'm
Anita?
sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry, Samantha. I thought you were questioning the legality of it, not just, okay.
If we're just talking about item number 23, I would disagree. I don't think that the conversation has been merit-based at all around this. I think it's been proven for the last 3 years that no one wants the job, and Kyle graciously stepped into the position. And if Kyle would not have done that, we would not have a finance director. And if he chose to leave or something happened to him, it's been proven that we cannot hire a finance director. And so that, in my opinion, is not make that one merit-based at all. Basha?
Thank you, through the chair. This question would be to Kyle. In the event that council would approve and these ordinances, are these numbers already worked into the budget that it would be like do you know what I mean? Like they're already worked into the potential numbers for this year?
Through the chair, we will bring to you, the administration, a balanced budget. It's going to, of course, rely on some of the surplus because, as Councilman Turner pointed out, we definitely have a general fund deficit from our income tax. There is no way around recovering from that. The question's going to be, when will that recovery begin to take place? But the budget that we will present will be in balance. It will provide you with the ability to make changes where you, along with the administration's input, believe it's in the best interest of the community. But at the end of the day, yes, it has to be passed in balance by state law.
Thank you.
Mike?
Lauren, if I could just, I don't want to put, summarize, but I think you were trying to express that this was a matter of, fairness and equity for the position. And for Kyle, I think that's what I think I would share those sentiments. And, the position's hard to fill. Someone's doing that job. And because of circumstances beyond that were already there, which we've rectified through the charter amendment. So I think also the impact on the general fund, Kyle, would not be as heavy because that's a third or appropriately charged off to the enterprise funds for which you do the work. So we're not talking about that fund actually hitting the full brunt of this, right? It would probably roughly be a third, or I'm not sure how the new equation is with the, the auditors have asked us to refine how we charge off to said funds.
Through the chair, that is correct. But what needs to be highlighted as the mayor in the last 3 years was considering looking for a finance director, we had to budget for both the finance director and the deputy finance director position, because if there was a candidate that he felt would best fit that, I, under civil service, if that wasn't me, would need to slide back into that role. This will be the first budget year that we will not be actually budgeting for that deputy position. So there is an automatically, when you take into consideration how we budget, because again, we don't know when we're going to hire somebody, if they're going to come with a full family or be single. So we always build in the most conservative of a full family health cost, pension, and payroll. So there will be an additional $130,000 available in appropriations this year that have not been available in the last 3 years as a result of us not putting that budget line item into the finance department for salary and benefits.
As a follow-up, if I may,
Right.
through the chair.
Mhm.
So from your perspective as the chief financial officer of the city, there is more than enough there with that savings to absorb any of that increase that's being sought after with that legislation.
Yes, through the chair. And
Okay.
in addition to that, through the chair, the mayor has asked department heads to curtail looking to fill positions of people who've either retired or left work for the city. The finance department has had 2 positions vacated in the current calendar 2020. And our staff is covering that shortfall with the existing workforce. So in essence, there is a sizable amount of savings being generated out of the general fund out of the finance department back towards the general fund. And this has been one of the mayor's creative ways of trying to close the structural budget gap throughout the city.
Anita?
To the chair, should this pay increase take place, it would make your position one. Let me put it this way. On council, we're expendables. Okay, there's always someone who can fill our shoes without going out doing a huge search and things like that. However, filling your shoes, if something were to happen to you, would be has already been shown it's a major problem. So this then indeed makes your position, should something happen to you, one that we can be competitive in getting somebody in here.
Yes,
True.
through the chair, that is the case. And you remember, you're all aware of what my health is. This is something that could be in your lap sooner rather than later.
Yes, thank you.
Don't say that, Kyle.
But we have to
Jinx
all be
yourself
honest,
there.
through the chair. I mean, this is one of the reasons that the mayor is pushing for this. I mean, we have to be conscientious that you have to attract the best talent. And this will make it possible in the future if that's something that, I cannot perform my duties because of my health.
Through the chair.
Mayor?
If I could, just in summary, we found that we had not been competitive in the top person in the finance. This is what we're talking about. We talk finance, and we were not competitive. This position had not had an increase since 2007. And for us to be competitive and make sure that we find the best qualified candidate, we were blessed and fortunate that we had somebody in-house. But it's always, what happens to, someone gets sick or, find something better in their life. We've got to be prepared to be competitive again with someone else. So we want Kyle to stay around. We're not looking for him to go anywhere, but it wasn't for him. It's for the position that we want to be competitive. So I just wanted to say that and retain some talent that we have.
Thank you. How did you guys settle on this particular number of 96, K and some change for finance?
Through the chair, Cal, the details came, we start talking about out of that department. We looked at what the kind of going rate was. We looked at his department being a supervisor, but we also looked at the benefits that other departments were getting, as well as the finance director was not. He does not get a car, is not able to accumulate some of his sick and vacation. So there's some intricate pieces that he's missing, but we wanted to kind of make that part of the incentive for that position as well. And if I missed anything, Cal brought all this to me, and I kind of worked it out as what I thought would be fair. But am I missing anything on there, Cal, as we went through the position?
Through the chair, one item, we took the police chief and looked at what the difference between the police chief and the highest ranking captain makes. And we use that same percentage so that I'm making that same amount in excess of what my CIO makes. So it is the same percentage. That was so that we thought there was continuity there across those numbers.
Are there any other questions, Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. So you say how you say Cal brought you this information, and that's how you settled on his increase. What about Jeff? How did you settle on the number for Jeff? Because I believe it's changed since the last.
Okay, that's number 24, just so we make clear that, are we done with number 23? Okay, I think Anita, anything on 23?
Yeah, it's this on 23. So Cal, what's this percentage that between you and your CIO? Is it
1
15%?
second. Let me just open that spreadsheet up. I apologize. Just 1 second. Through the chair, it is 6.3%.
6.3, thank you.
We'll move down to 24, and Samantha, you can start us off.
So my question is, what did Jeff bring to you and to help you settle on the number for his increase? Because before they were even, because that I believe is all charter related, but I assume that Jeff did something else to get his number to where it is. Can you lay that?
Actually, through the chair, we looked at where we were and talking to some members of council about what we thought the difference between the law department and the finance department. One of the things I looked at is how do we get to the 3% increase? Everyone in that department, they were getting 1% increases regardless for what position they were in the law department. And there had not been an increase since 2007 for this position. So I went for the last 3 years at a 3%. I just did one, and one over the last 3 years. In learning and what councils, again, have an appreciation what council's looking for is to do more work in-house. And I guess what I want to figure out is how do we recruit talent for in-house work in the law department and not outsource? The problem is we can't attract them. We've got to have a long-term plan in this department. It can't just be a one-hitter quitter, because the law is it's a little more in tune with civil, not in criminal, and you've got to have a very good specificity in law. So what we're found out is we want to realize that if we want to recruit young people or talent in that department, we've got to have a long-term plan. So this year we wanted to adjust the law director's position, and we want to look down the road as to how do we recruit more talent, as well as how do we train and develop the attorneys that are in there. We tried that. We tried to bring an attorney in, and be honest with you, and 6 figures of what they're making in other law firms to negotiate. So we're in the mid to high 80s. We've tried to find minority candidates to come in our law practice, in the law department, and we can't keep them because they go out to the private firms and make 50 or 60,000 just coming in the door. So we've got to realize that we've got to get competitive in that department as well. So we wanted to take it from a holistic approach to that department. So that's what we've been looking at, and Attorney Limby has tried, because I've given him some directives. Let's find some specificity so we don't have to go outside. It just can't, it's not happening because the cost, outweigh individuals coming in.
Samantha?
Thank you. Through the chair. So you're doing a 3% increase for his position because you want to increase the wages of the other lawyers in the department incrementally, or it would assume that they would be even, because we didn't change that piece in the charter that says that the mayor's salary is their percentage is a percentage of the mayor's salary. So how do we follow that law if they have two separate salaries? But I just don't know why his amount went down, since we are just raising the position so that we are more competitive, period, in the future. And what do we do about the other attorneys in the office?
Through the chair, I think you're right, but that is the highest position in that department as we speak. But I think you can't just look at one position in this department. There's multiple pieces in that department. This is a long-term plan for, I would say, salary adjustments. And I think that's a bigger conversation for a longer conversation for a longer day to have. So it was not necessarily all the other positions in that department did get a 1% increase. So they were getting increases over the years. This position was not. So we just want to start somewhere. This was our starting point, but I think a long-term plan, we're going to have to, if we want to really reduce outsourcing and having outside help, we've got to be, I don't know what that incentive package looks like. I don't know how we're going to attract those specialized civil attorneys to come in and for the money we offer to stay with us. They'll come, but they won't stay.
Through the chair.
Julius?
Thank you. So, Mayor, in order to give this increase to this position in the law department, are you saying you actively looking for a new law director as well?
Through the chair, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying what we're looking to do is to improve that position, no matter who's sitting in that position. I'm looking at reorganizing and right sizing and making sure each department is moving and operating at the right pace. At the cost, if we're asking for individuals to do more work in house, but they need that specificity, we need to pay them, and then we need to make sure they get the training.
Sasha?
Thank you. Through the chair, who would be directly under the law director? Kind of like when we were talking in Kyle's example, how the person under him, we're asking for the differential to be about 6.3% differential. What percent differential is this raise?
Through the chair, I would actually have to have Kyle do that I don't have that in front of me.
1 second.
Kyle?
What position is considered to be right under the law director?
1 second, through the chair. I just want to re-clarify. I did misspoke before. My difference between my position and the the CIO is 6%. I inadvertently gave you 6.3, which is the difference between the police chief and the captain. But your question was in the law department. The deputy director of law currently makes $80,392 at this moment. So if we were to take that,
Give them 6%.
1 second, as I'm working on 80,391.36. It would take that up to $85,214.46. So it would be under what the mayor is proposing right now. The mayor.
Through the chair, I'm proposing a 3%. The differentiation, I don't know if that's what we looked at in this position versus where we were. We didn't have anyone closer to that in his department as well. We were not going to make it with the chief, as the fire chief or the police chief.
Okay, and through the chair, if I may just make a quick statement.
Basha.
I mean, I understand where you're getting your 3% from, the 1% each year. But as a point of clarity, 1% compounded annually is not the same as 3%. But I have no further questions.
I guess I want to be careful that we don't get into a situation by where all your department heads start coming to us saying, well, I want to be 6% higher than the person below me, or I want my 1% raise that everybody else got the last 3 years. Like there has to be some there could become a slippery slope here in the terms of the law department one versus the finance one. The finance one we literally can't live without. But the law department one falls more in line with some of our other positions as far as department head needs. So, I'm just throwing this out there, but I don't want to end up in a situation like that.
Through the chair.
Mayor.
I guess my issue is that many of these other positions, other than the finance director and the law director, were getting increases over the years. And these two had not. So
the other department heads you're saying were?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what you said? Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I knew that. I don't know why I forgot about that. I'm sorry. Okay, Mike, you have your hand up, I see.
Through the chair, Lauren, that was you and the mayor came to the conclusion. I was just going to point out, I believe that those are only positions not getting the standard increases that went across to the other management folks because their salary was locked in by the way it was written in the charter. So
yeah. Okay. So then, given that, never mind. You know what? Samantha, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. So, Mayor, are you proposing that the law director's salary be increased annually by 3% in order to make their position more competitive? Instead of doing the jump that we just, that we propose with Cal to get it up there and get into a competitive spot, we're just saying we're going to take the law director's position year by year. Is that what you're saying?
Through the chair, that would be the long-term plan. And I'm not sure three is the number, but we wanted to make it over a longer, over a longer period of time. Yes. I don't know if 3 is going to get you there, but I think in the next 4 years or the next 3 years, it can be a competitive position. But I thought that was indirect response. I thought that'd be a different conversation for a longer conversation, more in depth, more detail for council to have in front of them as to what that looks like.
Thank you. And I just have one direct follow-up, Chairwoman.
Samantha.
What is the stipend? Maybe Cal can tell me for Jeff to perform the duties as the city prosecutor as well.
To the chair, that payment is not made by the city. That payment is made by the county to Jeff. I think I have an idea, but I do not know exactly. If Jeff does, I'd rather have Jeff speak on that.
Through the chair, there is no stipend from the city at all. There is a stipend for all prosecutors from the county of I want to say $2,500 a year, if memory serves me. But when I through the mayor with the mayor consolidated both the prosecutor and the law director's positions, there was no accommodation made for handling both positions.
So
Samantha.
Thank you. So if that, but in normal times, we would be paying a prosecutor as well. So Jeff has this job as our law director and our city prosecutor, and being paid $2,500 annually to do both of those positions. But we feel that because right now this law director job is prosecutor and law director, we do 3% to increase him doing both jobs. That the logic isn't following for me. That I don't understand why we are devaluing the position of law director when it is just as important. It's a very important position in the city. And if something was to happen, we would need to fill it with someone that could take on the job of a municipal attorney and have all of civil, municipal, criminal in their mind. So we're taking it down and saying 3% increase. This, we're not even close to six figures with this. So I'm not sure if I'm following how we're handling them. I thought it was even better last time when you presented them both, with the same increase. Again, because we haven't changed the law in the charter where your percentage of your wage is based off of their wages based off of yours. So the inconsistency is kind of weird for me, especially since we don't have a prosecutor. What's the holdup?
Through the chair.
Mayor.
I think you're looking at just one position in that department. We're talking 4 or 5 individuals that are going to have to be competitive if we want to bring a much more of the work in-house. Mind, there's an outside factor that we're talking about. We're talking about outside attorneys doing work for the city in the law department. I'm talking about a whole department reorganization with the law, with the specificity, the training and development that needs to happen. Because that's why I think it's a bigger picture than just one person or one position. It's multiple positions in that department.
Thank you. Just a direct follow-up. So with that being said, you have a law director who is a law director and a prosecutor, which are both historically full-time jobs. And we are paying a person to do 2 full-time positions. And we are saying we're going to pay him to do 2 full-time positions because there's other attorneys in the office. And I mean, we're paying them low too. So why are we not looking at the whole of the department instead of just looking at his salary? If it's a plan and it's a plan for the whole department, then present us the whole plan and how we're going to get the department to be stronger. That includes the prosecutor. And instead of let's just do 3% here, because again, I feel like it's devaluing the position just to say, let's do 3% when they haven't received a raise since 2007. So if we're going to do it, then let's do it right. And that's my
Through the chair, in direct response.
Hang on,
I think
there's some echoing. Okay. Mayor, I think I'm gonna mute. Okay, he muted. All right, go ahead, Mayor.
Just in direct response, I think that's a bigger piece. This legislation is a start. We had not done any of this. So this is a start. It is not watering it down at all. There is a robust plan for this department because I'm hearing that we want to do more work in-house, but you're going to also, council is going to be aware that we're going to need to make sure that when I talk about training and development and making sure we can attract for those specialized attorneys, those are all things that we're talking about, goals and objectives for this department. But we're right here. We're here and now. I think it's not it sounds easy on paper, but to really reach out there and get it, when you start talking numbers and figures, it's a bigger process. So it's not just a 1 day or 2 day. It's a multi-planning piece. But we're here and now, and I want to start somewhere. And this is just my starting point. I'll be back. I think if council has the appetite, which I believe you do, to make sure that we can do more work in-house and not outside, then it's going to be a robust plan. But it's going to be a multi-year plan as well.
Through the chair.
Julia.
Thank you. Why Dana Lance was formerly the prosecutor, right? Why isn't she the prosecutor? Why did it become a combined job with Jeff as law director and prosecutor? Was that to save money? And if so, haven't we spent more money in the law department since we've done that? or am I wrong?
Through the chair.
Jeff,
Oh, thank you. That was an idea that I brought to the mayor, and the mayor, if I can speak for him, liked it because it was a cost-saving measure, and we have in fact continued to save money as a result of that. We have more versatile assistants now, and the law director now has a better hand on what's going on in the prosecutor's office, as opposed to how it was historically when I was an assistant prosecutor 3 decades ago. The two offices were completely separate and acted as distinct entities. And the law director, although is technically the prosecutor anyhow, really had no involvement in the prosecutor's office at all. And so I thought this was a way of number one, providing better services up and down, and also saving money. And as you know, we've saved in excess of $300,000 by that process.
Thank you.
Anita, Anita,
To the chair, I'm not, I don't know, knocking, that's definitely not the right. It's not like I'm not sliding the law director's position, but we have not been able to attract anyone to the finance director's position. We have had more than one person apply to be law director. When Mayor Brown came into office, he probably received at least four applicants, maybe 5. So, like I said, I'm not saying that it's not important, but we had a bigger pool to pull from for the law director's position. And it's about the supply and the supply and demand. You know, we have attorneys who will take the position. If Jeff left us tomorrow, he found a job that paid buku bucks, there'd be someone who'd be stepping up to his plate. And I know that. I mean, I know of a couple of people who applied, but there's no one doing similar for the finance director's position. And so it's about supply and demand, and there's a demand for the finance director, and whether it be Cal or anyone else, because they are more in demand, they can seek more. That's just the reality. And then it's not a shot at Jeff at all. It's just it's the reality that says got more people out there who want to do your position. That's all. Thank you.
thanks, Anita. Mike,
Sorry. No, I just, where I think we're going, round and round. I don't know if folks need more time to discuss this, or they feel like this piece pertaining to the law director requires additional, meeting time, or, perhaps, more plans. I'm just trying to summarize what some of my colleagues have, said. So I know we're all, everyone's saying a lot and trying to figure out what's the best move. So I don't know if this, does it make sense to, keep this in committee for further discussion because people want additional information. I'm just trying to say, how do we bring this to some point without, going in circles and getting everyone's questions answered to reach a comfort level that we can have together to move forward.
thanks, Mike. Yeah, I mean, I think Samantha pointed out, made some good points about, a full plan for the law department, if that's what the mayor has in mind. I'd like to see a scenario where we outsource the opposite. Instead of in-house, we outsource more. How many lawyers do we actually need to keep on staff if you're saying we got to pay them way more than we can afford? Because let's be honest, we're barely going to be able to afford the finance director increase. And that's a desperate supply and demand need, like Anita pointed out. So, I mean, if the committee wants more information, wants to have a separate meeting on just this piece. Anita?
To the chair, I mean, I'm satisfied with the questions that how they've answered the questions, and from me as a member of the committee, the finance committee, I don't need to have another special meeting to hammer out the things dealing with the law director's position.
Okay, Basha?
Thank you through the chair. I was going to say something similar. I'm fine with it proceeding forward, but listening to some of my colleagues, it sounds as though they're looking for a concrete plan similar to what we asked of CPED when we were presented with wanting to change salary, or I believe it was like an increase of salary. We wanted a cohesive plan, or what the whole plan for the department was. So I mean, that would be, but I mean, I guess that would be up to us, but I'm fine with it going forward.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a discussion to be had about the department as a whole, because it does not function the same way as the finance department does. I mean, the lawyers in there, they're hired in a different manner than the people who work in the finance department are, Kyle excluded. So that needs to be taken into consideration, but just a larger conversation there, it sounds like we all want to have. But I guess at this point, we'll just keep moving down our agenda, since we seem to have talked these two pieces to death, and I think everybody got out everything they wanted to say for now without us going back in circles. I'll just give final moment here if anybody wants the last word. Okay.
Lauren, I'm sorry, through the chair, I do have a comment. If we were to keep it in committee, Mayor, would you like to present us with a plan of how you envision the restructuring, or whether it's restructuring or just, the financial feasibility of, changing the positions or increasing wages? Would you like that opportunity, or are you indifferent and we could proceed forward?
Through the chair, I'm always looking forward to that. Actually, Attorney Lembian has been charged with looking at how to reorganize his department. But I just think we're here and now. I don't want to find us 3 months later, we're still talking about, a 2021 increase that someone could have been afforded, and everyone else in the department is getting the 2021 increase already, whether it be 1% or 2%. So I'm going with the here and now. If we're talking about the bigger picture, I think that's planning down the road. Even if we come to the point where when we get to the budget process and introducing each department to the budget, that we can bring it to you at that point as well. I just don't want to leave this in committee and for the lack of, if we're all in favor or not in favor, do one or the other and let's go forward with it.
Thank you.
But I'm definitely, I'm sorry, in direct response, I'm definitely open to sharing that vision and plan with the council.
I'm sorry, can I just do the number 24, the numbers one more time? Kyle, so I understand Mayor, you did a 3% increase from 83K to 86K. But Kyle, you said if he would have done the 6% increase the way that he did yours, he would have went actually to a new salary of 85K. Kyle, you're muted.
Through the chair, that is correct, because the Deputy Director of Law new salary is at a lower level than where the 6% starting point between the captain and the police chief are. So that is why that 6% is not as large off of the base of the deputy law director position.
And what are the other department head salaries versus the person right below them, the difference there? Is it all over the board, or is there something like this,
Through the
a
chair.
formula?
Through the chair. All of the department heads have been receiving the pattern wages that we have given in the last 15 years. But there are differences in each department because certain department heads have specialties, like Chuck Shasho. He has to have certain licenses, so that guarantees certain payments compared to somebody working underneath him, similar to what's over at wastewater and what is at water. So it's across the board. There is no continuity other than between the safety forces.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have some ordinances that have been signed out of committee. Ordinance 20-05. I think all three of these, I think were just because they've been sitting on our dockets for a year and we just need to clean them up because the administration didn't come back to us, weren't prepared to move forward in 2020 with any of these. So all three of them are just being asked for a yes vote to defeat, to get them off of council's books, and then the administration can come back to us with them when they're ready. So are there any questions on any of these three or what's going on here? Okay. All right, that's everything. I think we just need a motion, but whoever makes the motion, I think number 19 has to have that amendment of striking general fund.
Through the chair, it's more than just general fund. Can you strike from the general fund?
Strike from the general fund.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you know what? I didn't do our miscellaneous item yet, so I'm going to hold off on that motion. I'm sorry. I was moving ahead. Let's do the third thing on our agenda here today is the miscellaneous, and we do have some things specific under it, which is the clerk of court salary promotion. Kyle.
Through the chair, it's been the mayor's goal to be transparent as we are working on today with all of council when it comes to making changes to department salaries of the employees. I was working on developing the payroll budget last week, and it was brought to my attention as I was crunching numbers that something dramatically happened in the clerk of courts department in calendar 2020 that the administration was not aware of. We have, it has been the spirit of what we have been dealing with the unions and negotiations is that we have outlined the criticalness of the budget deficit, and we were successful with those unions that we hadn't finished which we began working with after COVID occurred, to asking these departments for salary postponements. And we were successful in working with City Hall ASME and that they would take a postponement of 1 year. And we worked with the water department, who was appreciated and postponed salaries by 2 years. It has come to my attention that the clerk of court, Ms. Brown Clark, has raised salaries of 11 employees by $91,000. I have shared that with you because, again, of transparency, of making sure that you're aware that when we come to you with the budget for the departments, that we are going to have to build in these changes. And these changes have been, per the administration, we've tried to check those so that when we come to you and ask for you to develop the budget, that those surplus monies get set aside in hopes of being able to use those for how council and administration believes would be best suited for the community. What I uncovered was that the salary increase was in essence earmarked towards 8 employees in September of this calendar year during the height of the COVID recovery. And that on January 1, there was an additional increase for 3 employees. And then there was a new hire. So what I did was I broke down based on what we had started the 2020 budget to see what the 2021 budget would look like in comparison. And during that process, what I came up with is the documentation that we provided you that shows at the start of 2020, based on the employees that were currently in positions, this is what the cost would have been if those employees had fulfilled the whole working year. And we did not ask them to be furloughed. This is what it would have cost the general fund for the clerk of court. I then did a comparison of what those salaries are now after those wage increases, in addition to the 1% increase. It has come to my attention since working on this document that there is one person that was no longer on the payroll because of them receiving a severance, that they still stay in our system until that severance is paid. That person should no longer be on this. So in essence, what it does show is year to year that there are still 25 employees working in that department, and that the salaries are approximately similar to what they were. But it's been the goal of this administration, as I mentioned earlier, that if there's going to be people exiting the system, that we try to utilize those savings so that we can help reduce the structural gap that we have. And my concern is, and the administration's concern is, that when we sit down at the table with our unions, that these positions, which are not management, they are, they are defined as, they are considered unclassified, that yes, they may be, under Sarah's perspective, doing more at this moment than what they were asked of when they were hired, but that is what's being asked of all of us, and that those savings be passed on to assist with, again, delivering services. But what this document shows you is nearly half of her workforce, without any documentation of already notification to council or to the administration, these wage increases were passed on. And it's going to make it difficult for us moving forward. And I wanted you to be aware of that we're going to most likely going to binding arbitration with the police, the fire department. And this document is going to be used as an item of, it's going to be made difficult for us in negotiations, that this kind of handout to probably these deserved employees, but the fact that it was done during the middle of COVID, when we were asking for furlough savings and we were looking at ways of curtailing spending, we now are absorbing an additional $91,000. And what makes it hard for us in the administration, as I also shared with you the court cases, as you can see the difference between 2017, and I think you should ignore 2020 and just look at 2019. The trend has been for the criminal cases they've been dropping. So we've dealt with 2,000 cases less from 2017 to 2019. And it's most likely that trend is going to continue even when we recover from COVID. Also, as you recall, we've had studies done where we need to target and start looking at cutting costs in our clerk of courts and our courts bailiff system. And yes, we are going to see a reduction in headcount, but unfortunately, none of those savings are going to matriculate to the bottom line, because all of those savings have been, in essence, gobbled up in wage increases to the tune that each of these individuals on average is getting an additional $8,800. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of this, because when we put together the budget, this is going to be something that you're going to see that is going to be very different than any of the other departments. The other departments will have wage increases associated with the increase that council awarded to those management and to the unions that were negotiated. But I just wanted to make you aware that we have uncovered this, and we want to make sure that that information is shared with you.
Thanks, Kyle. Basha?
Thank you through the chair. I have several comments, but first I'll ask a question. Kyle, could you tell me, just ballpark, what was the previous salary prior to this wage increase of the average employee of those that received the raise?
Oh, of the salary, it would take a moment for me to calculate that out during some questions.
But I mean, I guess I'm going to assume that it was probably less than $80,000. I guess my comment is we're sitting here, talking about, 3 and 6% increases for your positions, but I'm going to assume that these increases are substantial, way above 10%. That I can guarantee. And I know we're in a tricky position. I've been trying to grasp this both under the old administration, this administration, how things like this can occur. And it's just disappointing because it just is. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. I have a series of questions, but the first question that I have here is, these increases, I guess they're already in effect. Who in the finance department signed off on these increases? Because don't they all come to the finance department before they're paid?
Through the chair, there is no sign off through the judicial branch. The clerk of court sends over a letter. It goes to one of my union payroll clerks and it tells them what to do on what effective date per her signature. So those documents were sent over staggered, and until I actually started to work on developing the budget, I, along with the administration, was not aware that any of these had been handed out.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Samantha?
Thank you for that one. The next one is, does the clerk's overall budget increase, or in this, I would say in 2021, will this make her budget go up?
Through the chair, given that there are going to be 2 positions that are not going to be on this document, that I've now learned that those severances will be paid out. One was paid out on the 2nd of the new year, and another one will be paid out when that person leaves in April. If you look at this document right now, and you were to remove those from 2021, the salary costs will be close to being equal, but then we have to absorb in this calendar year the severance of both of those employees. And then you have to look at if there is any increase in wages compared to last year, that increase is going to increase also per the effect of the pension. So for every dollar more that is greater than what we had last year outside of the 1% increase, that would be identified as a year-over-year change. Most likely, we are going to be above that. We're not going to be as dramatic now that I'm aware that the 2 positions are going to be, vacated. However, as you could see, the last person, Chase Brown, the clerk of court has her discretion on when she wants to hire. So she chose to hire an additional employee on the first working day of this calendar year. There is nothing that prevents her from deciding to hire more employees other than something dramatic, which would be asking council to eliminate all of the positions on the master salary of unfilled positions in the clerk of court, because in the executive branch, we need to come to you if we would like to make changes, and we need your approval and sign off, along with the mayor needs to internally approve that. As you can see from what has happened, because these positions are on the master salary and they were unfilled, the clerk of court had the authority per the state ordinances by law. She could fill these positions as she did.
Okay, so through the chair, Cal, you said I guess so. How I'm understanding is that she is well within her rights to hire, change positions and salaries. And you're saying that she also has some retirements, which makes it closer to even. So, I mean, she didn't do what are you saying that something was done wrong, or explain to me what the problem is?
Through the chair, before I learned that there was going to be somebody who is going to retire, I needed to make sure that, one, it's my job as the fiscal officer to make sure that the mayor and the administration is aware of these changes. These changes occurred and none of us were aware. And so I made sure I brought that to the mayor so that he understood that. Second, it would have been nice if Ms. Brown Clark had contacted us and at least given us the heads up that she decided to make this kind of change. Because again, we have to consider what the administration has been challenged with over the last few years of again, establishing a pattern wage increase, and what this is going to reflect when we go to the table, when we're all aware that we've had studies say that our clerk of courts and our court system is too large for the amount of size of the city, and asking department heads to do more with less. And now we find ourselves where a department based on the data is shrinking. They're getting wage increases that nobody else has seen across the city. And they already received all those 1% increases that had been passed on to management, because the mayor sponsored and prior mayors have sponsored legislation to include those non-certified employees in those raise hikes. So it's not so much that she's done something that she didn't have the right and the authority. It's just the timing, the impact, and what this means going forward when we have to go to the table and negotiate with unions that have the ability through binding arbitration to have a third party decide this, where we would have no ability to prevent it. And when we have to try to argue this kind of change, there isn't much that we're going to be able to use to, in essence, strengthen our case against their case.
So I guess I have a question for the mayor. What's your plan moving forward, or, so that something like this doesn't A, happen again, B, there's, we take whatever recommendations, were given by Albuser Hall, plus the study before that, to right size this department. I mean, do you have some actions in mind that you're planning on doing?
Through the chair, actually, this is actually in council's lap. There's 3 equal branches of government and they're equal. I have no say in the judicial side of their budget. It is up to council for your appropriation of that budget. I can only administrate what you give me. So it is actually in council's lap to decide where we are.
So you're going to bring us a budget then that includes everything exactly the same? Because that's what happens. You guys bring us a budget.
Correct. In direct response, I can give you the budget as requested from that department. And I guess what Kyle is explaining to you, the numbers were going to be excessive of what typically happens in that department, but it may change because of numbers. So we'll give you the budget as presented. This was kind of just to let you know, here's what we're seeing. If this trend continues, there's going to be a bigger request. There may not be that now, since we found that information out today, but just to let you know, be aware of it. I don't control if she requested it will come as a request from her, from that department, from that side of the world.
So you don't work with her to develop the budget the same manner that you work with the other department heads?
No.
Because she's not really a department head. I'm just curious. I don't know the process.
In direct response, the judicial side, I don't tell them, no, you can't, or, cut back 20% or 10%. I only have the executive side of the world that I can control.
Okay. Anita.
To the chair. So, Kyle, these positions of deputy clerk, they were on the master payroll, but they had been unfilled. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the positions that show promotions, I believe so, because that is how you change the salary by moving a person from one position to another that is on the master salary, correct?
So she didn't give a pay increase, she promoted people. Now, are there additional vacancies still there?
Through the chair, I'd have to look at the master salary, but yes, there are vacancies on the master salary that she has the authority, because they're on the master salary, that she can fill at her discretion.
And so, as I've said about the police department, where I have objected to hiring new officers, bringing down the number of officers we have on the force. And if we don't do anything right now, there is nothing that would preclude Mrs. Clark or anyone else, well, Mrs. Clark in this case, to fill any other vacancies there are. So if we don't change the master, more can be promoted. Is that right?
Through the chair, the only place that can happen without your authority, because remember, you approve what the budget is in each department, and you approve or payroll changes. Only in the clerk of court or in the courts can those positions be filled that are on the master salary without your approval. So unless you budget for those increases, and again, that is our response. It's our job to share with you if we're proposing to do that in any of the departments. You then either reject it or you approve it, giving us that authority, and then we need to come back to you through the mayor's budget total, what he submits to you. Then we could, but those two departments, we have no authority. And as long as there are open positions on the master salary, as what was the case, those positions can be filled at her desire or at the judge's desire.
So following up, so the way to prevent this from happening in the future would be the elimination of those positions.
Through the chair, that'd be correct. And then the clerk of court or the judge would have to come back to you to ask you to put a position back on the master salary, because you are in charge of appropriations. And if positions are not on the master salary, they cannot then be appropriated for.
And I'm fully aware. So, for instance, I'm looking at this list here, and one person got with this promotion, you see the $16,000 increase?
Yes, and that position, it does, there's a more of an internal concern we have there. When a year and a half ago, we came to you, the administration, and asked if we could transfer Daryl Anderson's job from the clerk of court, which was that position, to the finance department, computer department, because we felt that if we moved that to this department, we would, one, reduce the clerk of court's cost. Two, we would then have a person working over at the clerk of courts along with the health department who were working for Rick Deek. And also which in addition, through the charge off of that person being responsible, we would see some recovery from water, waste, and environmental sanitation. Never did we believe that position would then be filled, and not even for that duty, because this position isn't actually specialized for a computer. It's specialized to do a bunch of different work requirements. But this position was left on the books and left open. And this is what's happened as a result of us not considering this, that position now that Daryl had been in that was vacated is now filled by this promotion. And that is why it has cost $16,000 between what the person was earning before this position or before this promotion occurred. So it's a little disheartening that occurred, because we had sat down and come up with a plan and sold it to you. And now that position that was open has now been used to move and slot this person into it.
Through the chair, I have I think 2 more questions. So with the 2 people who are retiring, that's a savings of $81,000, little 81, just shy of $82,000. and yet the increase is 91.
No, please, excuse
Well,
me.
okay, clean up my act, clean up my mathematics for me.
No, you are
Okay.
correct. The payroll total will go down, but those savings that we would have matriculated to the bottom line are not occurring because we have these wage increases of
Right.
91,000. So in essence, the department size has shrunk, but the overall budget is not.
Okay. Now, and one other thing, I think this might be my last question. So while everyone else is getting 1% in the hundreds, we have individuals here who are getting thousands. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is what happened.
Okay, and everyone and over here was going to get the 1%, but instead of getting 1%, they're getting thousands of dollars.
Well, if the people who got promoted in September, they also earned the 1% on top of their promotion because their promotion occurred last calendar year. So that's why those numbers to the right, that is in addition to what they got. So you need to combine the two. And the reason that you don't see it on the bottom, people, is because those people got promotions on January, the new year, so they were already built into their base.
Thank you. I'm sure somebody else has questions. Madam Chair.
Mike,
Thank you. And I think Anita did ask or clear up some of the things that I was just thinking about was the master salary. Obviously on the administrative side and the mayor's side, they have to move those in there and we allocate that. I think this is, a must that we need to clean up any unfilled positions off of the master salary to avoid anything. We have to use what tools we have. Also, probably a dialogue on this. What can we do to where's the cut going to be? And it really is sad when we see so many departments. We've asked everyone else to do more with less, do more with less, do more with less. I think I've heard the expression before in City Hall: you get a promotion, you get the new job, and you get to keep the responsibility of your old job. So when we see this, it's kind of, scratch your head. The finance is looking at saying, how do we argue back on this when we're trying to negotiate across the board, and we've done these things in good faith with our other groups. So this looks like it will be a challenge for us to navigate. But I would think, Kyle, if we can get a list of those unfilled positions, or the mayor presents the master salary. I don't know how far off we are. Usually we do that at the same time of the budget, but this may be something where time is of the essence, and we might want to update that master salary more than once.
Samantha.
Thank you, through the chair. So I just want to get some clarity, being as that she is in the judicial branch. Just the notes that I have. So one, she was well within her rights to give increases and give wage raises. Okay. And we haven't heard from her, but maybe she was making her positions more competitive. We need to hear that full story. But also, I believe you said, Cal, that your team was notified of them as they happened. But I think that they're internally, you weren't notified of it and those were processed. And maybe that's an internal audit that we need to look at. If they've come to you and they were just processed, maybe you could have caught them when it happened and had a discussion about it, but that didn't happen. And then you said something that was very interesting to me, that we've asked everyone to tighten their belts. We are allowing this 1% increase. So it's the time and impact, but yet and still, we are raising your salary, and we're asked to raise your salary and the law director's salary. So we could use the same logic across the board. But I don't see that she did anything wrong here. It's just what we have not been prepared and been doing all along. So let's look at those master salaries and make sure that we get everything cleaned up.
Through the chair, I'd like to say one thing. Through the chair, I do accept responsibility that I did not catch this when it occurred. My staff received these documents, and because the clerk of court does have that responsibility and that authority, they acted on it. I have asked them in the future, and I've told the mayor that when that does occur, I will make him aware of it. It's just what I would like to point out though is the mayor has asked all of his department heads with all legislation, all border control, that everything funnel through him, because ultimately he has to make these decisions and he's responsible. So it's our job to make sure that we fill him in with all of the documents and instructions that we have. It would have been nice to have been flagged, but I definitely accept responsibility that I should have caught that. And I apologize, and I will do a better job in the future. Thanks.
Kyle, thank you for keeping us abreast of the situation and letting us know that this did happen. And hopefully in the future, there's better communication between the judicial branch and the administrative branch. That's not the executive branch, sorry. So that if something like this is wanted, even if it's within the rights of the judicial branch, there's a conversation about it first. Now we'll have to deal with it on the back end. Anita?
To the chair. Well, you did hit on one thing, which, because you said, even though someone has the legal right, but when everyone and when others are trying to do it the other way, trying to tighten the belts and everything else, there's the legal right and then there's right. I will say that here and now. There's a legal right and then there's right. And this was not right. Because we have, again, told people, telling everyone in our workforce, got to tighten it up. We're trying to cut corners. We take $100,000 away from the police department ends of the budget. Okay, and I can't see myself saying to them, again, we're going to take another $100,000 or $200,000, taken away from there, and then it goes to somewhere else. Taking it from here, going somewhere, and instead of it going, saving this money, because that was the goal, which is to just streamline things so that we don't have to go up there and worry about $5,000 here, $1,000 there. We want cameras at 50,000. We're saying we got to come up with this money here, but here's $90,000 in promotional pays. There's right, there's legal right, and there's right. I'm sorry to, maybe, you would say, well, Cal should have caught it, or through his department should have been caught. This shouldn't have been done. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Mike?
Actually, after what Anita said, I there's nothing else I can add to that. So.
All right, thanks.
I concur.
Yeah, yeah, Anita, you summed it up perfectly from my perspective too. Okay, under miscellaneous, anything else that we want to talk about from miscellaneous, or anything, or not that we want to talk about that anyone else wants to bring up? I'm just gonna throw this out there since we had the big snowstorm and has nothing to do with finance, but there's a lot of people watching. Kevin, I'm sure they're wondering what the snowplow situation is. Not to throw you on the spot here, but if you're still on the call and you wanted to just give a quick update, I would appreciate it for myself. I'm sure other people listening would too. He might not even still be on though.
He might
Kevin?
be out plowing.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I see him.
salted.
He's muted now. I see him now. He's muted now. I know the crews are out, and I've talked to him earlier, so they're out. He would be able to give you the more specificity out as the numbers continue. I know they've been staging and they've been out and about, so I'll maybe have him text all members of council tonight and kind of give you a number of how many trucks are out and how many can we expect. They're working, they're 12-hour shifts now, I believe.
Thank you. Yeah. If you do talk to him, a quick text would be fantastic. That was all I had. All right, I'm gonna now take my motion. Abasha,
Thank you. Thank you through the chair. I would like to make a motion to forward ordinances 1 through 9, 11 through 18, 20 through 24 to the council floor for consideration of passage.
Second.
I would like to make an additional motion to forward ordinance 19 with an amendment, striking the verbiage from the general fund to the council floor for consideration of passage as amended.
To the chair?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Anita?
Basha, I think the word
Yes.
from the can remain, and just the word general fund has to be.
I thought Kyle said that it has to also be from the.
Excuse me, through the chair, this is Valencia. It's from the general fund. That's correct. That's the correct language. Mhm.
Okay, so my motion remains.
Through the chair.
Yes.
It's not coming from the general fund. B, that's
Yeah,
incorrect.
you want, right, that's correct. We want them to strike it. I got it, Kyle. I'll send the language tomorrow.
Okay.
It's good. It's all good.
Okay, Boston, I'll second your motion.
Thank you. And then I would like to make an additional motion to forward ordinances 20-05, 20-63, 20-64. Oh, that's it. Oh, those three to the council floor with a yes vote to defeat.
Second.
okay. Thank you for everyone's patience. This was a really long meeting. We haven't had one this long in a while. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 7.